Aaron was supposed to make sure that it was burning all night long until in the morning time. Why would that be? What do you think? God wanted it to be burning the whole time. What was it supposed to do in there? At any rate. Yeah, it provided light. Morning came and the sun was out, and the curtains that made up the tabernacle were thick enough to where at night there wouldn't be a whole lot of light coming in there. But during the daytime, it wouldn't be so bad. But he was to keep those lamps. You know, it's the lampstand. There's 7 of them, right? And then the lamps themselves are sitting on the top there, burning pure pressed or beaten olive oil. Okay. What about the bread? Somebody tell me about the bread, Pam.
It had to be 12 loaves, and each bread represented the tribes of Israel, and it had to be made with so each loaf was 2/10 of an ephah of flour.
Okay, an ephah of flour. What else? Was there anything else that was part of the showbread?
It was also eaten by the priest.
Eaten by the priest. Brenda?
Frankincense?
Yeah, frankincense was to be sprinkled on them. What was frankincense? What was frankincense? What was it used for?
It was a spice.
What, used for what, Danielle?
Used to prepare bodies.
It was also used to prepare bodies. Where do we hear about frankincense in the New Testament? And?
It was gifts the Magi brought to Christ.
Yeah. It was one of the gifts that the Magi, or actually, according to what I saw on the internet, they called them Magi. I always call them Magi, but anyhow. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So there were to be 12 cakes that were made, fine flour, 2/10 of an ephah, and each 2 sets of rows, 6 to each row, and as somebody said, it represented each one represented one of the tribes. I'm sorry?
It entered to 12 tribes.
Yeah. And it was on a table that was made out of pure gold. The frankincense was on there as a memorial for the bread, and then every Sabbath that was to be set out before the Lord as an everlasting covenant. Okay, as somebody said, the priest, I think at least it was that the priest ate of it. Aaron and his son shall eat of it. Eat of it in the holy place, for the most holy, for it is most holy to him from the Lord, offering by fire this portion forever. Tim, do you have your hand?
Yeah, you mentioned the arrangement of the lamps and the bread in the tabernacle. It doesn't really say it directly in the scriptures, but Jews traditionally saw it as with a lamp on one side and the bread representing the 12 tribes on the other side as God's light shining down on Israel.
Yeah, and that makes sense. You know, that might be traditional, but it makes sense. Fire or lamps like that always indicate, a lot of times at least, indicate the light of God. And Jesus was called the light, as a matter of fact. So it comes into the world and illuminates all men, as long as they're willing to pay attention to it. Okay. I forgot my thing. All right. Let me blank that up right there. Well, I can't blank it up. This is on mine. Tell me about this Israelite woman, her son. What was that all about? What happened with this Israelite son? She was an Israelite, but the father was an Egyptian. And he fought with an Israelite man. What happened during the course of that confrontation, that fight? What happened to him, Pam? Cindy?
The son had got, it says that the Israelite woman's son blasphemed the name and cursed. So they were stunned and he was stunned and put to death.
Well, we're getting
Or
there in a
did
minute.
I go ahead? Okay, so I got to your point.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. So what does it mean that he blasphemed the name? What does that mean? Denise? Yeah. And in your Bibles, I believe this word name is all in capitals, or at least it is in the one that I looked at, which is a strong indication that it's a reference to God. That's the only name that is of any real consequence. Yeah. Okay. So they brought him before Moses, and they waited for what? What were they waiting for? They didn't make a decision real quick. Yeah, they were waiting to hear from God, so to speak, in regard to what they should do with this guy. And God told him that he was to take him outside the camp, and those who heard him blaspheme, not just anybody, but just the ones who heard him blaspheme, were to lay their hands on him, I guess identifying him as the one who had committed this transgression, and then the whole congregation, or all the congregation, were to stone him. It's a grisly way to go, I want to tell you. But I think that God was making these punishments very, very harsh for a reason, and that is to try and make sure that everybody understood you need to obey me. It's very, very important to do things according to the way that I have instructed you. It seems to me that if that kind of thing was still enforced today, there would be a lot of dead religious people, because there's just so much stuff that is done in the world of religion that is not according to what God has to say. Gene? Yes. Yeah.
God said that first.
Absolutely. So the deal is that anyone who curses God will bear his sin and shall be put to death. All the congregation is to stone him, and it's not just the Israelites, but the aliens as well that are dwelling with them. Anybody that blasphemed, anybody that cursed using God's name as a curse, they were to be put to death. That again, if that was the case today, there'd be a lot of people being put to death, because it is very, very common. We talked about it, I think, last Wednesday. It's very, very common that people in their abbreviations for texting and that sort of thing use OMG all the time. That was the one that I knew. Deanne sent me a text with some abbreviations for texting for old people. Thank you. Thank you, Deanne, for that. But it was very cute. I dare say I don't expect to run across those abbreviations being used in any of the texts that I get, but I very much enjoyed it, Deanne. Thank you. Okay, so then we've got this eye for an eye business toward the end of chapter 24. So what were the things that were designated there in an eye for an eye? What was the first one that was mentioned? Eye for an eye.
Murdering a person.
I'm sorry?
Murdering a person.
Yeah, you kill somebody, what happened to you? Killed. What about another one?
Fracture for fracture.
Fracture for fracture was one. Cindy?
Eye for an eye.
We already done that.
Tooth for a tooth.
Tooth for a tooth, yes. Life for life, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, fracture for fracture, animal for animal, injury for injury. You hurt somebody, then you hurt in the same way. Pretty strict situation. So, and there was to be one standard for everyone. Oh, you just didn't get to choose, or be unfair. This was applied to everyone. There's people still today that will say eye for an eye. That's not all that uncommon. And law of Moses, what does the law of Christ tell us in regard to that kind of thing? What if somebody injures us? What if you're getting in a fight and they hit you in the eye for that use of the knife? What are you supposed to do? Turn the other cheek, pray for them, whatever, Gene.
In First Peter, it says, not returning evil for evil, or insult, but giving a blessing instead. So,
Yeah.
you don't give evil for evil, you return a blessing.
Didn't Jesus give us the perfect example of that on the cross, where he prayed for those who were putting him to death? Father, do not lay this, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. And not only that, but, not only did not revile them or whatever, he actually prayed for them. And since he is our
Personal vengeance on another person. It's not, you hurt me, so now I can turn around and hunt you down and hurt you.
Yeah.
It's the judgment of the judges.
Yes.
When, the person is brought before the judges and so on. I mean, the law of Moses also talks about not taking personal.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And God says today, vengeance is mine. I will repay. So that's another reason why we're not supposed to follow the same thing, the same pattern that he did.
And also, even back then, God specified that if one person is killed by another, then the family are not to then go after not just the other person, but the whole family. It's supposed to stop right there.
Yeah.
But, the person who did the crime is the one who dies, not the whole family, and it doesn't go on for generations.
Yeah. And that kind of fits in with what the prophet Ezekiel had to say, the soul that sins, it shall die. The father should not bear the iniquity of the son, the son should not bear the iniquity of the father. There was a lot of equity and mercy and grace involved in the law of the Old Testament. A lot of people think that there was no such thing as grace and mercy under the law. It was very, very strict, but God was very long-suffering and patient with his people.
Jesus also said he wants us to treat other people as we would have them treat us.
Okay, very good. All right. Oh, I keep trying to advance my slide here. I've done the hang on. Okay. Chapter 26 is pretty much giving us a recap of Exodus chapter 20, verses 2 through 11. What is Exodus chapter 22 through 11? Yes, the Ten Commandments. So what God is doing here in chapter 26 is he's kind of revisiting that moral law with his people, and so he says that this is the way that you're supposed to conduct yourself when you get into the promised land. Okay? So they were to worship only God, who had brought them out of Egyptian bondage. It stands to reason that he would tell them, well, you're not to erect any objects of worship to false gods. He said, no idols, no graven images, no standing image, not even a stone. I gave you some definitions of those various things there as far as idols, objects that were of no value or helpless. An idol, why would that be of no value or helpless? What was God in Isaiah had a lot to say about idols and false gods. What was the thing that God said about that? Remember?
I don't know about Isaiah, but I know in Psalms it says they're blind and mute.
Yeah. The false gods, the idols, couldn't do anything for you. As a matter of fact, as I've said several times, if you wanted it on the other side of the room, you had to carry it over there, because it didn't have the ability to go over there for itself.
And, also, yeah.
I'm sorry?
I said I just had to see them all.
Oh.
It was there, now it's gone.
Been there, done that.
Just totally.
But look around, Denise, that's going to happen a lot. Now, graven images is anything that was carved or hewn out of precious metals, even cheap wood. No standing image, no vertical image that could be reared up, such as a pillar. Was not the Asherah of Jezebel, with those standing images as well? Certainly. Not a stone, an object considered to be sacred, that they would bow down to and worship. The false gods, that they had so many of them, and they used practically anything, just absolutely practiced anything, and they would call it a god, and they'd bow down and they would worship it. And God said, well, first of all, none of those are the ones that brought you out of Egypt. That was me. And what probably gives us a little bit of the insight into why idol worship was particularly offensive to God, because people bow down and worship something of their own creation, if you will, and it wasn't that idol that delivered them out of Egyptian bondage. It was the God of heaven and earth. Okay, and then there were, to keep the Lord's Sabbaths, there was the seventh day of each week, the annual day of atonement, the special Sabbaths every year of the seventh year of the Jubilee. There were all kinds of holy days that they were to observe. And the last thing here is that they were to reverence the Lord's sanctuary. What do you think that means? And how would we need to apply that to us today? What does it mean to reverence something? Sorry? Okay, keep it foremost, keep it high esteem. I mean, to really recognize how special it is, and you show a lot of awe for it, and consider it to be something that is greatly sacred. And so the Lord's sanctuary was to be thought of that way. Now, before we actually look at the next slide, I want to just have us turn over to Jeremiah chapter 10, and we're going to also read from Jeremiah chapter 10 and also chapter 11. While you're turning over there to Jeremiah 10 and 11, God sent Jeremiah to the southern kingdom of Judah. And they had withstood the degree of idol worship longer than the northern kingdom of Israel, but they finally gave in to that. And so they were no longer trusting God. They were no longer keeping the Sabbath as they were supposed to. And so God was telling them through Jeremiah that Jerusalem was going to be captured, it was going to be destroyed, that it was going to be plundered, and the captives taken to Babylon. And God even used Jeremiah to let them know how long they were going to be in there. Now, just bear with me as to why Come on, give me a break, will you? I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what I just read. Not that one. That one. That one. Okay. We're going to read Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 23 first. And that's where Jeremiah makes the statement, "O Lord, I know that it is not man who walketh to direct his own steps." In other words, Jeremiah was reminding God's people, listen, it's never worked out for you in your relationship with God for you to decide that you're smart enough to take care of yourself and go your own way in it sort of thing. Every time that you do that, it turns out badly and unacceptable in the sight of God. Now let's read, and if you want to try to read it up there, I don't know if that's smart enough print for you, but at any rate, beginning in verse 7, "For I solemnly warned your fathers in the day that I brought them up from the land of Egypt, even to this day, warning persistently, saying, Listen to my voice. Yet they did not obey or incline their ear, but walked each one in the stubbornness of his heart. Therefore I brought on them all the words of this covenant, which I commanded them to do, but they did not. Then the Lord said to me, A conspiracy has been found among the people of the men of Judah, and among the inhabitants of Jerusalem. They have turned back to the iniquity of their ancestors, who refused to hear my words, and they have gone after other gods to serve them. The house of Israel and the house of Judah have broken my covenant, which I made with their fathers. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, Behold, I am bringing disaster on them, which they will not be able to escape. Though they will cry to me, yet I will not listen to them. Then the cities of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem will go and cry to the gods to whom they burn incense, but they surely will not save them in the time of their disaster. For your gods are as many as your cities, O Judah, and as many as the streets of Jerusalem, or the altars you have set up in the shameful way, in the shameful faith, altars to burn incense to Baal. Therefore, do not pray for this people." Isn't that a sad thing that God instructs people, don't be praying for them. They've gotten so bad that they've gotten so bad, I don't even want you to pray for them, because he says, I will not listen when they call to me because of their disaster. Right as my beloved in my house, when she has done many vile deeds. It's amazing thing what God says there in regard to the fact that his people had gotten to a point where they got so far away from God that God would actually say, don't pray to me. I don't want you praying to me. Because of how wicked you have become. Now, what we've got then now in chapter, I'll get it here in a minute. Okay, what we have here is a chart showing the blessings and the curses. And we have already seen something very similar to this. I think Dale was teaching the class on Sundays, and we talked about this quite a bit then. We're going to see it again when we get into the book of Deuteronomy. So what does that mean to you? That this is at least three times that God goes over, listen, if you'll listen to me, if you'll do my will. If you do what I say, I've got all these blessings. On the other hand, if you don't, then you're going to have to pay the penalty price. Joe?
Simply saying that the blessings of God are conditional.
Absolutely. Good point. Very good point. Okay, I'm not for sure I can read that small print from here, and I've got something in the middle of the page here that, you can read that. Tim, can you read that? Would you read just the blessing side?
Rain in due season, the land will yield increase, the trees shall yield their fruit.
Okay.
So eat your bread to the full. I'll give peace in the land. I'll rid evil beasts out of the land. With no sword, you'll chase your enemies, and they shall fall. I'll turn my face unto you. I'll make you fruitful and multiply. I will establish my covenant. I will set my tabernacle among you and not abhor you. I will walk among you and be your God, and I have broken the bonds of your yoke.
I ought to send chills up and down anybody's spine for God to say, I won't abhor you as long as you are doing what I want you to do, say to do. But then on the other side of the coin, and the curses that God said was going to come upon them are exactly opposite to what the blessings were. So when God said as a blessing, I will not abhor you, then if you don't do what I say, I will abhor you. My chosen people, I will abhor you. That's the reason why we read Jeremiah chapter 11 there, because God got to the point of where he was telling Jeremiah to relate to the people, don't even pray. Don't pray. Don't bother praying to me because I'm not going to listen to you. How important is that to you? That we have God's ear as his children, that we can pray to him. I want to tell you something. It was pretty important this past Monday. It got real important this last Monday because things got pretty pretty scary around. I saw on the internet today that they now watch films and that sort of thing. There were 11 tornadoes in the Chicagoland area alone. And that system was so huge, I looked on the weather map, and while it was still in our area here, it stretched all the way down south to Indianapolis area. I don't know if they were going to have as much tornado problem as we did up here, but it was a huge system. It took a while for it to get through. Did anybody have any damage done to your house or anything? You did? I'm sorry?
Just a gutter.
Just a gutter, okay.
We haven't got to check that.
I know that Tom Schmidt, I talked with Tom, and their power was knocked out. So I guess there was a lot of people out of power in the town.
Well, when you talk about the leads, this guy, look at my friend that he is doing a lot better.
Yeah.
Healing, the power of prayer. I prayed when the storms came through on Monday. I got my power back on today. So it was really scary because I live in a trailer.
Yeah. It seems like the tornadoes just don't like trailers.
I had to leave, but the lucky thing was the storm didn't do what it did further away from me.
Yeah.
So I was very grateful that even though my trailer was falling apart, I still got this tree branch.
I think I was at my desk working, and all of a sudden my phone, that real loud thing came on. And I thought, well, I wonder if that's an Amber Alert, because it does the same thing for Amber Alerts as well. But I picked it up, I looked, and it talked about, severe weather with tornadoes and warning, which means that they're not just thinking that there might be that they are present. And it said, seek shelter immediately. Now that'll get your attention. That's all somebody ought to go.
That's a change of subject. But in verse 9, that's a real sweet thought when it says, I will turn toward you and make you fruitful and multiply. Turn toward you and make you think of the last supper when I assume John was leaning up against Jesus or space, but I don't know exactly the proximity and all that, but then it switches down to verse 17.
know that, I called Jean immediately to see if, she had seen the warning, and she said she had. She had already positioned herself in her apartment where they recommended to go, and I had myself, and so during that 45-minute period of time, we were on the phone, praying and, reading some of the Psalms that, offer a great deal of comfort and encouragement. And I want to tell you something, it made a big, big difference in how frightened we were. Because, I don't know where the tornado was, but there was a couple of them in Munster, and I don't think either one of them got real close to the apartments where we are. But I know that there was some terrific wind there, all of a sudden. I mean, it was windy, and then it was really windy. So for God to say, I will turn my face from you, I will abhor you, don't bother praying me, prayer really meant a lot to us, at that time. Knowing that my sister and her daughter were in tornadoes down in Texas already this year. So we need to make sure that we're not going to incur the wrath of God by disobeying Him and not doing according to what He really wants. In Leviticus chapter 26, verses 44 and 45, in spite of all of these blessings and cursings that have been listed, God said, yet in spite of this, when they are in the land of their, in the land of their enemies, I will not reject them, nor will I so abhor them as to destroy them, breaking my covenant with them, for I am the Lord their God. But I will remember for them the covenant with their ancestors, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt in the sight of the nations, that I might be their God. I am the Lord. These are the statutes and ordinances and laws which the Lord established between Himself and the sons of Israel through Moses at Mount Sinai. So again, we saw them earlier. We'll see them again in Deuteronomy. But to me, the lesson here is it's God's way or no way. We have to get that in our minds. One of the things going sideways on it. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Just two things in regard to the curses. One is when you read through it, there's kind of an increase in the level of judgment on the curses. So he just kind of starts out, if you don't obey, then all these bad things are going to happen to you. And then he goes on and he says, like in verse 23, if by this discipline you are not turned to me, then I will walk contrary to you. So in other words, God Himself will be against you. Yeah. And then in verse 27, that if in spite of this you will not listen to me, then I will walk contrary to you in fury. So there's the point of the curses is to get them to turn. So even if within the curses, there's an element of mercy, because the whole point is to get them to turn, and God increases the level of curses, hoping that they would turn. Yeah. And then it's also in verse 34, it talks about when He does ultimately, take them out of the land because of their sins. It says, then the land shall enjoy its Sabbath as long as it lies desolate. So we talked in chapter 25 about the land itself getting the Sabbath in the 7 years, and the land would rest. And basically God is saying, if you don't give the land the rest like you're supposed to, I'll give it rest. Yeah. It's going to get the rest one way or another. Either you do it the way you're supposed to, or I'll do it, but that way won't be very much.
Yeah, good point. Very good. Very good. Any other comments that anybody wants to make? Okay. Read that. So let's go to chapter 27. And chapter 37 is gifts that are offered to the Lord. All the sacrifices presented at the altar were gifts to the Lord. And we're told that persons and animals could be given to the Lord in fulfillment of a vow. That's verses 2 through 13. Houses and pieces of land could be given to the Lord in verses 14 to 25. The firstborn animals automatically belong to the Lord, 26 to 27. Persons and animals and to be irrevocably devoted to the Lord. Tithes were to be given to the Lord from all the yearly produce, fruit, products, seed, herd animals, and flock animals. So, these gifts to the Lord, when you decided that you were going to offer a gift to the Lord, He expected you to do that. He expected you to do that. And the vows were optional in the sense that they were not commanded of a person. They were optional, but as I said just a moment ago, it was pretty important that you kept your vow. So what did you have to do if you decided that you made a vow and you were going to dedicate something to the Lord, and then you changed your mind, and if it involved a person or a piece of property or something, an animal, and you changed your mind, what could you do about that? So you just stuck. What could you do with it? Yeah.
And basically, God would say, Christ is the gift. You can pay a price, and that would release you from your vow.
Yeah. So we have then the way that you can redeem houses, land, or family. You can redeem those, and God even gave them the schedule of what it was supposed to cost you. In shekels, a child 1 month to 5 years old, if it's a male child, it was 5 shekels. If it's a female, 3. 5 to 20 years old, it gets more and more until you get us old people. But anyway, 5 kind of tells you a little bit about us. 5 to 20 years, 20 for men and 10 for women. 20 to 60 years. Now, why do you think 20 to 60 years was such an important age group? Because that's 50 for men and 30 for women. What's so special about that? Cindy?
Was that because that's childbearing?
After days? Yeah. Any other ideas? Yeah. Those were the time of your greatest energy and stuff, where you can be more productive in working. By the time you get 60 years old, God considers you just his whole attitude doesn't change, you know? But 60 years and above, 15 for men and 10 for women. But the good thing about it was that it at least allowed you made a vow, and maybe you made a rash vow. And maybe you didn't really think about it, maybe you had some kind of experience and all of a sudden you felt real grateful or something, and so you made this vow to offer some kind of a gift to God, and then after you thought about it a little while, you thought, well, that's not really a very good idea for me, for one reason or another, and that's the reason why God said, well, you can get out of it, but you have to meet. Now, who devised that, who came up with the amounts there? So,
I don't know, but that's a lot of detail for that time, because if I'm not mistaken, they didn't have coinage or currency before this time.
okay.
I understand. So I was amazed.
You're supposed to give shekels, the shekels of the sanctuary, so they had to have some kind. Yeah, but something of value, it had to be something of value. Very quickly, while we're waiting for the youngsters to come up, who is it that we're going to study one of these times who made a very rash vow?
Yes,
Yes, sir. And by the way, those of you who are going to be teachers at that time, just let me tell you this, that the booklet that you will have from the Waldrons, Bob and Sandra Waldrons, has one of the best treatments as to Jethro's vow, as to whether he actually helped it as it was stated, or if he did something like this, and not offer his daughter. And they present the scriptures and everything for you to consider, and just basically leave it up to you to make up your mind whether you think you did it in him.
There's also something similar with Hannah.
Yeah.
Hannah vows, if you give me a child, I'll devote it to the Lord. So obviously she literally did devote a child rather than she's gonna pay what she could pay.
Absolutely. Very good. All right, thank you all for your participation in class. I appreciate it. I do apologize for the fact that I was changing the screen on my computer and thought that it was changing up there, and I had to be back. Oh, by the way, I'm talking to people down there. Oh, yeah. You're only involved.
So if you pro, then good. I'm sorry, if you pro, then good.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the bill.
Tape over. It should be. So people don't press the button.
Mario, you got Tom?
Yes, sir. Got the announcements, I think. You do? Someone got it. Weston. Already.
Yeah.
Bill, these things work better when you turn them on.
Yeah, just noticing that when
That's all right.
pulling it out.
Yeah, that's happened to me where the batteries run out.
Building's out of town.
Building's out of town. We got some teenagers out at Hammond.
Isn't that Racine?
Indiana Bible Academy. Little Shackamack, Indiana. Shackamack State Park or something. It's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
We don't have the list up here. Also, there's a sign-up list for the Lake County Fair. So if people want to get involved, sign-up list, talk to me or my parents. I know, just turn on the mic, turn on the video, walk up there and do it. His mic should be on. You know what? Tony is not feeling well. Prayers for her health.
All right, time to begin. Good to see everyone tonight. We still have a number of our group out of town. Kildings are still out of town. A lot of teens are
at Shakamak, the Indiana Bible Camp. So keep them all in your prayers. Sony wanted prayer. She's not feeling well, so that's where she's at tonight. Lake County Fair's coming up after the Porter County ends. And so we started last year, so we have a sign-up sheet for that. So it's very productive last year. We want to be more productive this year. So see the Lopez's if you have time to sign up for the Lake County Fair booth that we do. Let's see here. Oh, wanted to offer up thanks for Karen for wonderful job in the garden out front. It looks great. After the guys completely destroyed it. They're good at destroying things. But it looks really nice. And also Tawana for the plants. It just makes everything look so much better. Thank you, ladies. So keep them in your prayers that are out of town and not feeling good. I know Nick and a couple of the kids are heading back tomorrow, so they'll be back soon. Mario's got our songs. David has our closing prayer, and Weston has our invitation tonight.
We'll be singing number 220, No Night There. In the land of fadeless day lies the city foursquare. It shall never pass away, and there is no night there. God shall wipe away all tears. There's no death, no pain nor fear, and they come not time by years, for there is no night there. All the days with pearl are made in that city foursquare, and the street with gold is laid, and there is no night there. God shall wipe away all tears. There's no death, no pain nor fear, and they come not time by years, for there is no night there. There they need no sunshine bright in that city foursquare, for the land is all the light, and there is no night there. God shall wipe away all tears. There's no death, no pain nor fear, and they come not time by years, for there is no night there.
If you would like, you can go ahead and open up to Colossians chapter 2. I'll be just reading verse 8 from there. If you would like to keep up with me in scriptures tonight, you can try your best. I'll just be going, kind of flying through a few of them. Colossians 2, verse 8. Beware lest anyone cheat you through philosophy and empty deceit, according to the tradition of men, according to the basic principles of the world, and not according to Christ. We all know from Scripture that there are many false prophets out in the world, many teaching enlightenment or other forms of worldly wisdom. Genesis 3, specifically in verse 6, gives us a great example of this. Directly following the back and forth between Eve and the serpent. So the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise. She took of its fruit and ate, and she also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Eve was persuaded in this very way due to enticing words by the most cunning creation of the Lord, even though it was directly in opposition to what the Lord had commanded her to do. It just sounded a little bit better to her. In the same way that foolish thoughts of men can sound very wise, we also know that the wisdom of true wisdom, the wisdom of the Lord can come off as foolishness to men, as we find in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18 and 19. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Prudent being one who is acting in a way that shows care towards the future or worldly things in another sense. But for many people, the truth of the Lord is undeniable, at least in the heart, as it is described as being sharper than any two-edged sword. So let's take a look at a few scriptures that speak of the true wisdom of the Lord. Start in Genesis 41, 38 and 39. I'm reading every verse from the New King James, by the way. This is directly following Joseph's interpretations of Pharaoh's dreams, and this is what Pharaoh has to say about it. And Pharaoh said to his servants, Can we find such a one as this, a man in whom is the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. We'll go over to the New Testament. Acts chapter 4, verse 13. I'll read that real quick. Now when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, and perceived that they were uneducated and untrained men, they marveled, and they realized that they had been with Jesus. So we see that specifically the wisdom of Jesus elevates someone to a different level, despite not having despite being uneducated, according to the world standards. So then let's go down to and see what Jesus has to say about the topic, which is very similar to that verse, John chapter 7, verse 15 through 18. And the Jews marveled, saying, How does this man know letters, having never studied? Jesus answered them and said, My doctrine is not mine, but his who sent me. If anyone wills to do his will, he shall know concerning the doctrine, whether it is from God or whether I speak on my own authority. He who speaks from himself seeks his own glory, but he who seeks the glory of the one who sent him is true, and no unrighteousness is in him. The Jews were shocked to hear all this coming from an uneducated man, as in he had not gone through all the proper training that the Pharisees and the Sadducees the scribes had all gone through, which was their wisdom. That was what they considered top, above everything else. Listen to this, that's wisdom. But they couldn't believe what they were hearing coming from the word of Jesus. The difference was Jesus did not have preconceived ideas of the scriptures, blocking his view of the truth. He sought the Lord, and that's all he did. Let us be in the Word continually, specifically with prayer, to avoid all worldly understandings away out of our minds, praying that not what we want to be shown will be shown to us, but what the Lord will have us to know. despite however hard that may be for us to come to grasp with. So tonight, I would encourage anyone, if you would like to know more about the wisdom of the Lord, if there are any confessions for anyone to make, we invite you to do so as this time, as we come and stand and sing.
All to Jesus I surrender, all to Him I freely give. I will ever love and trust Him in His presence daily live. I surrender all. I surrender all to Thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all to Jesus. I surrender. Humbly at His feet I bow. Worldly pleasures all forsaken. Take me, Jesus, take me now. I surrender all. I surrender all to Thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all to Jesus. I surrender, Lord. I give myself to Thee. Fill me with Thy love and power. Let Thy blessings fall on me. I surrender all. I surrender all to Thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all.
Please bow with me. O Father in heaven, your mighty presence and great power is before us, creator of all things and in control of all. Thank you for this day and the breath we breathe. Thank you, Lord, the opportunity to study this night and all the things we learn to share in the world. Please, O Lord, Father, with your healing hands on the sick and spiritual sick, whose names you know, pray for those who are traveling to reach their destination on time. O Father, I pray in tests and trials that we keep to you in one faith and one hope that fills our hearts. Be with us, O Father, as we leave tonight and imitate you throughout the rest of the week until the next appointed meeting, and forgive us of our sins against you. In the name of your Son, Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Getting better. Just hop on in and take it over.
going